The small research station floated in the darkness of space like a dying star. Red lights flashed everywhere inside as alarms screamed warnings that nobody wanted to hear. Dr. Hana Kim ran through the metal corridors with sweat on her face and fear in her heart. The pirates had found them, and now everything was falling apart. Hana reached the main control room where Captain Dong-Soo Park stood looking at the big screen that showed 6 enemy ships surrounding their station. The pirate vessels looked like metal sharks with sharp edges and dark colors. They had weapons pointed at the research station, and their message was simple: surrender in 6 hours or die. The research station was not built for fighting. It was made for science and discovery. The people inside were doctors and scientists and engineers who spent their time learning about the universe. They had no weapons except small tools and no soldiers except security guards who carried simple stun guns. Against real pirates with real weapons, they were helpless as children. Captain Dong-Soo Park was an old man who had spent 40 years in space, but he had never faced anything like this. His hands shook as he walked to the communication station. The research they were doing here could change the galaxy forever. They had almost figured out how to send messages faster than light across the stars. If the pirates got this technology, it would be very bad for everyone. The captain typed in the emergency code that would send their cry for help to all their allies. The Galactic Cooperation Council had promised to protect research stations like theirs. Surely someone would come to help them. The message was short and desperate. Help us, please. Pirates attacking. We'll be dead soon. Need rescue now. But space is very big, and signals can get lost or go to the wrong place. The emergency message bounced from one relay station to another across the galaxy. It traveled through quantum tunnels and subspace channels that bent the rules of physics. Most of the message went where it was supposed to go, to friendly alien worlds that might send help. One small part of the signal went somewhere else. It traveled far away to the edge of known space where most civilized beings were afraid to go. It reached a small blue world that spun around a yellow star. The computers in that system saw the message and marked it as important. But the beings on that world had never heard of the Galactic Cooperation Council or research stations or any of the other things in the message. Lieutenant Jinwoo Lee was working the night shift at Lunar Station Alpha when the strange message came through his equipment. He had been listening to space radio for 3 years and had never heard anything like it. The words were in languages he did not know, but the fear in the voices was something anyone could understand. Someone was in trouble and they needed help. Right away. Jinwoo recorded everything and sent it to his commanders on Earth. Within 1 hour, the message had reached the highest levels of human government. Admiral So Young Choi read the translation attempts and studied the star charts that showed where the signal came from. She was the commander of all human space forces, and she had been waiting for something like this. Humanity had just learned how to travel faster than light. Their ships were new and untested, but they worked. The human race had been alone in the galaxy for so long that finding other intelligent life was like finding treasure. This message proved that other beings existed, and some of them were in danger. Admiral Choi called her best ship captains to an emergency meeting. The 3 fastest ships in the human fleet were ready for long-range missions. They had powerful engines and heavy weapons, because humans believed in being prepared for trouble. The ships were not pretty like the vessels other species might build, but they were strong and reliable. Back on the research station, time was running out. Dr. Hana Kim worked frantically to copy all their research data onto portable storage devices. If the station was lost, at least their work might survive. The breakthrough in faster-than-light communication was too important to lose. It could connect every world in the galaxy and bring peace through understanding. Captain Dong-Soo Park gathered his small crew of 20 people in the main meeting room. Most of them were young scientists who had never been in real danger before. Some were crying, and others were trying to be brave, but everyone was scared. The captain told them they would try to destroy the research data before the pirates could take it. At least then their enemies would get nothing. The pirate ships moved closer to the station like hunters closing in on wounded prey. Their leader was a cruel being named Veltar, who had attacked dozens of peaceful stations before. He enjoyed taking things from people who could not fight back. The research station looked like easy money to him and his crew. But far away, 3 human warships were racing through hyperspace toward the research station. The crews did not know what they would find when they got there. They did not know about galactic politics or alien species, or the rules that governed civilized space. All they knew was that someone had called for help, and humans always answered that call. Admiral So Young Choi stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the stars streak past as they traveled faster than light. Her ship was called the Indomitable, and it was built for war. The humans had learned long ago that peace was something you had to fight for and protect. They were coming to help people they had never met in a place they had never been. The research station continued to drift in space as the countdown to destruction continued. Dr. Hana Kim finished copying the research data and hid the storage devices around the station. Captain Dong-Soo Park sent one final message into space, hoping someone would hear it. "Help us, please. We are running out of time." Neither of them knew that help was already coming. 3 ships full of humans were racing through space at impossible speeds. They carried weapons that could destroy planets and warriors who had never learned how to surrender. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were very angry about what they had heard. The 3 human ships dropped out of hyperspace like angry gods returning to punish the wicked. Admiral So Young Choi felt her ship shake as it returned to normal space near the research station. Through the big windows of her bridge, she could see the pirate vessels surrounding their target like vultures around a dying animal. The human ships did not look like anything else in the galaxy. Where other species built vessels that were smooth and beautiful, the humans made ships that looked like weapons themselves, sharp angles and thick armor and guns everywhere. The ships were painted in dark colors with numbers and symbols that meant nothing to aliens but everything to the humans who flew them. Dr. Hana Kim was checking the station sensors when 3 new contacts appeared on her screen. For a moment, her heart jumped with hope. Maybe their allies had come to save them. But when she looked closer at the sensor readings, her hope turned to confusion and then to fear. These ships were like nothing in any database she knew. The new vessels moved through space with a confidence that made the pirates nervous. They did not ask permission to enter the system or identify themselves according to galactic law. They just appeared and started scanning everything with sensors that were far more powerful than they should be. The human ships spread out in a pattern that looked random, but was actually a hunting formation used by pack predators. Captain Dong-Soo Park tried to contact the new arrivals using all the standard communication frequencies. He spoke in the common, galactic trade language that most species understood. "Welcome, unknown ships. We are research station under attack by pirates. Please help us if you can. We do not know who you are, but we are grateful you are here." The response came in a language that sounded like nothing the captain had ever heard. It was full of hard sounds and sharp edges like the ships themselves. The translation computer tried to make sense of it but could only produce scattered words. Protect, fight, help, destroy. The meaning was unclear, but the tone was definitely aggressive. Commander Taehyun Kim was the best language expert in the human fleet. He sat at his station trying to understand the 2 different alien languages he was hearing. The research station people spoke in musical tones with lots of harmony like they were singing. The pirates barked commands in sharp clicking sounds like angry insects. Both languages were completely new to human knowledge. The human communication attempts sounded like growling animals to both groups of aliens. The harsh consonants and aggressive tone made peaceful species think of predators hunting in the wild. Even the pirates who were used to violence found the human language disturbing. It sounded like the voices of creatures that were born to fight and never learned to do anything else. Veltar, the pirate captain, studied the new ships with growing worry. His vessels were fast and had good weapons by the standards of civilized space. They were designed to attack merchant ships and research stations that could not fight back. But these unknown vessels radiated danger like stars radiated heat. Every line of their design spoke of violence and death. The pirates had been in space for many years attacking peaceful targets. They knew the difference between military ships and civilian vessels. These new arrivals were definitely military, but they were military in a way that made no sense. The weapons were too big and too numerous. The armor was too thick. The engines were too powerful. It was like someone had taken a normal warship and rebuilt it for fighting devils. Admiral Choi realized that communication was going to take too long. The research station was clearly in danger, and the attacking ships were, obviously, the bad guys. She had learned long ago that sometimes you had to act first and ask questions later. The human way was to protect the innocent and punish the guilty. Everything else could be worked out afterward. Dr. Hana Kim watched her sensors as the unknown ships moved into attack formation. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, like they had practiced this exact maneuver thousands of times. The ships did not hesitate or waste time with fancy flying. They moved with the direct efficiency of natural-born killers who had found their prey. The pirate ships tried to intimidate the newcomers by powering up their weapons and moving into threatening positions. This tactic worked well against peaceful traders and research stations. But the human ships responded by powering up weapons that made the pirate guns look like toys. Energy readings spiked off the charts as the humans prepared for battle. Captain Dong-Soo Park felt his hands shake as he watched the confrontation develop on his screens. The unknown ships had positioned themselves between the pirates and the research station. Their message was clear even without words. You will not hurt these people while we are here. The protective instinct was obvious and very reassuring. Commander Min Ho-yoon led the human fighter squadron that launched from the main ships. The small attack craft moved through space like hunting birds diving on their prey. The human pilots pulled acceleration that would have crushed most alien species, but they had been born and raised in gravity that was stronger than most worlds could produce. The fighters spread out in a search pattern that looked chaotic, but was actually very systematic. They were gathering information about the enemy ships and looking for weaknesses to exploit. The human military had spent thousands of years learning how to win fights against superior numbers and better technology. They always found a way. Veltar realized that he was facing something completely outside his experience. These were not the soft, civilized species he was used to bullying. These newcomers moved and acted like apex predators from a world where only the strong survived. Their very presence changed the nature of the conflict from simple piracy to something much more dangerous. The human ships took up positions that gave them the best angles of attack while protecting the research station. They did not demand surrender or offer terms for negotiation. They simply waited like patient hunters for their prey to make the first mistake. The message was becoming very clear to everyone involved. Admiral So-young Choi opened communication channels to both groups of aliens. Her words were translated by computer into something approaching understandable speech. The meaning was simple and direct. Pirates hurt innocent people. We do not allow this. Leave now, or be destroyed. There was no room for argument or discussion in her voice. The research station crew watched in amazement as their unknown protectors prepared for battle. These beings had appeared from nowhere and taken on 6 pirate ships without hesitation. Dr. Hana Kim wondered what kind of species produced warriors like this and whether their cure might be worse than the disease they were fighting. The first shot came from the pirates when Veltar decided that intimidation was not working against these strange newcomers. His ship fired an energy beam designed to disable the lead human vessel without destroying it completely. Pirates preferred to capture ships intact so they could steal everything valuable inside. The bright blue beam struck the human flagship directly in the center. Admiral So-young Choi felt her ship shake slightly as the alien weapon hit their shields. She looked at the damage report and saw that the pirate beam had barely scratched their defenses. Human ships were built to survive in a universe that was actively trying to kill them. What seemed like a powerful weapon to peaceful species was just a minor annoyance to vessels designed for real war. The human response was immediate and overwhelming. All 3 ships opened fire at the same time with weapons that made space itself scream. Kinetic rounds moving at nearly the speed of light punched through pirate shields like they were made of paper. Laser beams designed to cut through asteroid belts carved enemy ships into glowing fragments. The difference between civilized warfare and Deathworlder combat became instantly clear. Dr. Hana Kim pressed herself against the observation window and watched the battle with eyes wide in shock. The unknown ships moved through space like living creatures hunting prey. They did not waste movement or energy. Every shot was perfectly aimed and every maneuver had a purpose. It was like watching a dance of death performed by masters of the art. The first pirate ship died in less than 30 seconds. The human weapons tore through its hull and turned its crew compartments into superheated plasma. There was no time for surrender or escape. One moment the ship was there threatening innocent people, and the next moment it was expanding cloud of glowing gas and twisted metal. Commander Min Ho-yoon led his fighter squadron in a diving attack on the second pirate vessel. The human fighters moved in perfect coordination like a flock of hunting birds. Their small size made them hard to hit, but their weapons were just as deadly as the main ships. They swarmed around the pirate vessel and tore it apart with precise fire. The pirates tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for intimidation rather than real combat. They had never faced enemies who shot back with serious intent to kill. Their energy beams and plasma cannons were meant to disable civilian ships, not destroy military vessels built for war. Against human armor and shields, they might as well have been throwing rocks. Captain Dong-soo Park watched the battle through his station sensors and could barely believe what he was seeing. 6 pirate ships that had seemed invincible just minutes before were being systematically destroyed by 3 unknown vessels. The newcomers fought with a efficiency that was both beautiful and terrifying to observe. Veltar screamed orders to his remaining ships as he watched his fleet being torn apart. He had been a pirate for 20 years and had never seen anything like this. These unknown warriors did not fight like civilized species who tried to minimize casualties and avoid unnecessary destruction. They fought like the ancient legends of demon gods who brought righteous fury to punish the wicked. The 3rd pirate ship tried to run, but the human vessels were faster. Commander Jin-A Park piloted her ship in an intercept course that cut off the enemy escape route. The pirate captain begged for mercy over open communication channels, but the humans had already decided his fate. Pirates who attacked innocent people did not deserve second chances. The human weapons were not designed to be merciful. They had been created by a species that had fought its way to the top of the food chain on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Every gun and missile and laser had been built with one purpose: end the fight as quickly as possible and make sure the enemy could never threaten anyone again. Dr. Hana Kim realized that she was watching something that most peaceful species never saw. This was what real predators looked like when they hunted. Not the casual violence of criminals and pirates, but the focused aggression of apex hunters who had evolved to kill efficiently. The unknown ships moved through the battle like death itself had taken physical form. The 4th pirate vessel exploded when human missiles penetrated its reactor shielding. The explosion was visible even through the station windows as a brief, new star bloomed and faded in the darkness of space. The remaining pirates saw their companion die and knew that they were facing something far beyond their ability to handle. Commander Tae-hyun Kim monitored all communication frequencies and heard the panic in pirate voices as they realized they were going to lose. Some begged for mercy in languages from across the galaxy. Others cursed their enemies with words that would have started wars between civilized species. A few just screamed in fear as death closed in around them. The 5th pirate ship tried a desperate ramming attack against the human flagship. It was a suicide move by a captain who preferred death in battle to capture and execution. But the human ship simply moved aside at the last second and let the pirate vessel crash harmlessly into empty space while its crew died from the massive acceleration. Admiral Choi watched the tactical display as her weapons officers prepared to finish the last 2 enemy ships. The battle had lasted less than 10 minutes from first shot to final destruction. Human military doctrine was simple and effective. Identify the threat, eliminate the threat, move on to the next target. There was no room for hesitation or mercy when innocent lives were at stake. The 6th pirate ship was trying to surrender by powering down its weapons and broadcasting white flag signals. But the humans had seen what these pirates were doing to the research station. They had heard the fear in civilian voices calling for help. Surrender was a luxury that pirates gave up when they chose to prey on peaceful people. Commander Min Ho-yoon led the final attack that destroyed the last pirate vessel. His fighters swarmed around the enemy ship and reduced it to burning wreckage, with concentrated fire. The pilot who had been begging for mercy died without ever knowing that he was facing warriors from a world where mercy was earned through strength, not weakness. The battle was over. 6 pirate ships had become 6 clouds of radioactive debris drifting through space. The human vessels took up patrol positions around the research station like guard dogs protecting their pack. Their weapons remained powered and ready in case more enemies appeared. For humans, the fight was never really over until all threats were eliminated. Dr. Hana Kim stared at the debris field where the pirate fleet had been and tried to process what she had witnessed. These unknown warriors had appeared from nowhere and destroyed a threat that had seemed invincible. But their casual efficiency in dealing death was almost as frightening as the pirates had been. What kind of species fought like that, and what did they want with peaceful researchers? Captain Dong-Soo Park opened communication channels to thank their rescuers, but found himself wondering if they had been saved or simply acquired by new masters. The unknown ships radiated danger even in victory. They were clearly not pirates, but they were also clearly not like any civilized species he had ever encountered. The research station was safe, but the galaxy would never be the same. The human shuttle that docked with the research station 3 hours after the battle was unlike anything Dr. Hana Kim had seen before. Where alien shuttles were smooth and elegant, this one looked like it was built to crash through asteroid fields and survive. Thick armor covered every surface and weapon ports were visible even on what was supposed to be a peaceful transport vessel. Admiral So Young Choi stepped through the airlock followed by 5 other humans, and Dr. Hana Kim felt her breath catch in her throat. The beings who had saved them were tall and muscular with eyes that never stopped moving. Even during what was supposed to be a peaceful meeting, they carried weapons and moved like hunters ready for trouble. Their very presence made the station crew step backward instinctively. But the first thing the humans did was offer medical aid and emergency supplies. Commander Jin A. Park carried a medical scanner that could detect injuries and illnesses that the station equipment had missed. Lieutenant Hyunwoo Park brought food and water and power cells to keep the station running. Their weapons were ready for war, but their actions spoke of compassion for those in need. Captain Dong-Soo Park led the humans to the main conference room, where the research station crew had gathered to meet their rescuers. The translation equipment was working better now, and basic communication was possible. The humans spoke in simple, direct sentences that left no room for misunderstanding. They had heard a call for help and had come to provide assistance. Dr. Hana Kim found herself chosen as the primary contact with the humans because her background in xenobiology made her the most qualified to deal with unknown species. As she studied the beings who had saved them, she realized that everything about them was designed for survival in a hostile environment. Their bones were dense and strong. Their muscles were built for power and endurance. Their reflexes were faster than any civilized species. The truth emerged slowly, through careful questioning and translation. The humans came from a world called Earth that was far away on the edge of known space. They had never heard of the Galactic Cooperation Council or any of the civilized species that made up the galactic community. They were completely alone in the universe until they received the distress signal by accident. Commander Tae-hyun Kim served as the human expert on alien languages and cultures, even though he had never met an alien before today. He explained that humans had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and this was their first contact with other intelligent species. They had come to help because that was what humans did when they heard someone calling for help. What Dr. Hana Kim learned about Earth made her understand why the humans were so different from other species. Their world was what galactic databases, classified as a Class 12 death world, where everything was actively trying to kill the inhabitants. Poisonous plants and predatory animals and natural disasters and diseases that would wipe out most civilized species. The humans had evolved under a yellow star that bombarded their planet with radiation levels that would be lethal to most galactic species. Their atmosphere contained oxygen in concentrations that would cause fires to burn out of control on safer worlds. Their gravity was heavy enough to crush bones that had developed in more reasonable environments. Captain Dong-Soo Park arranged for detailed scans of the human ships with their permission. What the research team discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about spacecraft design. Human vessels were built like weapons themselves, with redundant systems and armor, thick enough to stop antimatter warheads. Every component was designed to take damage and keep functioning. But the most disturbing information came when Dr. Hana Kim was given access to human historical databases during the cultural exchange. Earth was not just dangerous because of its environment, but because its people had spent their entire existence fighting each other. War was not something that happened occasionally, but a constant part of human development for thousands of years. The humans had turned conflict into a science with strategies and tactics that made peaceful species feel sick to their stomachs. They had developed weapons that could destroy entire planets and defenses that could protect against almost any attack. Every human carried the genetic memory of ancestors who had survived by being better at violence than their enemies. Lieutenant Jinwoo Lee shared stories of human history with the research station crew, and each tale was more frightening than the last. Humans had fought wars that lasted for decades and involved millions of casualties. They had survived disasters that would have ended most civilizations and emerged stronger each time. Death and destruction were simply facts of life on their world. Dr. Hana Kim realized that the beings who had saved them were not warriors by choice but by evolution. Every human alive was the descendant of survivors who had won their battles against impossible odds. They carried weapons not because they were violent, but because their world had taught them that being unarmed meant being dead. The human medical officer, Commander Yeon-sik Lee, examined the research station crew and found injuries and health problems that their own doctors had missed. Human medicine was brutal by galactic standards, but it worked with efficiency that peaceful species found amazing. They treated illness and injury like enemies to be defeated rather than conditions to be managed. What made the humans truly frightening was not their weapons or their strength, but their attitude toward conflict. They did not fight because they enjoyed violence, but because they saw it as a tool for protecting those who could not protect themselves. Their capacity for destruction was matched by their willingness to use it for good causes. Admiral Choi explained, human philosophy to Captain Dongsu Park in simple terms that needed no translation. Strong people had a duty to protect weak people. Those who preyed on innocents deserved no mercy. Peace was something that had to be earned through strength and maintained through vigilance. These ideas were foreign to species that had evolved in safer environments. The research station crew learned that humans had laws about war that were stricter than most civilized species understood. They had rules about protecting civilians and treating prisoners and avoiding unnecessary destruction. But they also had the willpower to follow through on threats that other species made, but could never enforce. Dr. Hana Kim spent hours talking with the human delegation and slowly began to understand what they represented. They were not monsters or demons, but simply a species that had evolved under conditions that most beings could not imagine surviving. Their world had made them dangerous, but it had also made them protective of those who needed help. As the human ships prepared to leave the system, Admiral Choi made an offer that would change galactic history. Earth was willing to share its technology and knowledge with peaceful species who were threatened by pirates and raiders. They would teach others how to defend themselves and help maintain order in systems where local authorities were too weak to protect their people. The research station crew watched the human vessels depart with mixed feelings of gratitude and concern. They had been saved by beings who were more dangerous than the pirates who had attacked them, but they had also met a species that used their terrible power to protect the innocent rather than exploit them. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when Deathworlders decided to become the good guys. The news of what happened at the research station spread through galactic communication networks faster than light itself. Within days, every civilized world had heard about the unknown species that had appeared from nowhere and destroyed 6 pirate ships in less than 10 minutes. The Galactic Cooperation Council called an emergency meeting on the capital world to discuss this development. Ambassador Kellerine stood before the assembled representatives of 200 different species and tried to explain what they were facing. She was a Zephyrian diplomat known for staying calm in any crisis, but her hands shook as she read the reports from the battle site. The unknown beings had military technology that exceeded anything in the galactic databases, and they had used it without hesitation. Commander Yeon-sik Lee found himself appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the galaxy, even though he had never expected to meet aliens when he joined the Space Navy. His ship, the diplomatic vessel Terra Nova, caused panic wherever it went because it looked like a weapon designed by angry gods. Other species built beautiful ships that spoke of peaceful intentions, but humans built vessels that promised swift death to enemies. The first official meeting between humanity and the Galactic Cooperation Council took place at Proxima Station in neutral space. Delegate Sujin Han led the human team because her background in psychology made her good at understanding how different minds worked. But no amount of training had prepared her for the reaction she received from other species. Most of the Galactic representatives were afraid to be in the same room as the humans. Dr. Hana Kim had been invited to testify about what she had witnessed, and her description of the battle made several ambassadors faint from shock. She told them how the humans had arrived like gods of war and eliminated threats with casual efficiency that defied understanding. The human delegation tried to be peaceful and diplomatic, but everything about them radiated danger. They were taller and stronger than most species, and their eyes constantly scanned for threats even in secure facilities. They carried no visible weapons but moved like predators who were always ready to fight. Their very presence changed the atmosphere of every room they entered. Trade Representative Kyung-min Choi was overwhelmed with requests for human technology, despite the fact that most species were terrified of the people who had created it. Human weapons were crude by galactic standards, but they worked with devastating effectiveness. Human ships were ugly and utilitarian, but they could survive punishment that would destroy more elegant vessels. The Progressive Alliance, led by species like Dr. Hana Kim's people, wanted to welcome humanity into the galactic community. They argued that having powerful protectors would make everyone safer from pirates and raiders. The humans had shown that they would fight to defend innocence, and that was exactly what peaceful civilizations needed. The conservative bloc wanted humanity quarantined on their own world to prevent contamination of civilized space. They feared that human ideas about warfare and violence would spread to species that had evolved beyond such primitive behaviors. The humans were too dangerous to be allowed free movement through the galaxy. The neutral coalition preferred careful engagement while maintaining safe distance from the Deathworlders. They wanted to study human technology and culture, but from far away where human aggression could not affect their peaceful societies. They were willing to trade with Earth, but not to form close alliances. Captain Dong-Soo Park testified about his conversations with the human rescue team, and his words shook the galactic community to its core. He had learned about Earth's history, of constant warfare and survival against impossible odds. The humans were not just from a dangerous world, but had been shaped by that world into living weapons. Dr. Hana Kim presented her research on human biology and psychology to the assembled representatives. She explained how evolution had created a species that was uniquely adapted for violence, but also uniquely motivated to protect others. The humans were dangerous, but they were dangerous in service of good causes. The debate raged for weeks as different species argued about what to do about humanity. Some wanted to destroy Earth before the humans could spread their violent culture to other worlds. Others wanted to hire human mercenaries to protect their own territories from pirates and invaders. A few wanted to study human military tactics and adapt them for their own use. Lieutenant Hyunwoo Park was assigned to train volunteer officers from other species in human combat techniques. The job proved almost impossible because beings that had evolved in peaceful environments could not understand concepts like acceptable casualties and tactical sacrifices. Their minds simply could not process the mathematics of controlled violence. But some aliens succeeded in learning from humans, and they became formidable defenders of their own worlds. Species that had been prey for pirates and raiders suddenly found themselves able to fight back effectively. Human military doctrine spread to distant systems, where local authorities began implementing Deathworlder strategies. The pirates and raiders who had terrorized peaceful worlds for generations found themselves facing unexpected resistance. Merchant ships that had been easy targets now carried human-designed weapons and human-trained crews. Trade routes that had been hunting grounds for criminals became death traps for those who tried to prey on innocents. Commander Min Ho-yoon established the first human military academy on a neutral world where representatives from dozens of species came to learn about warfare and self-defense. The curriculum was shocking to peaceful beings who had never considered that violence could be used for good purposes, but the results spoke for themselves. Dr. Hana Kim founded the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Institute to help bridge the gap between human and alien understanding. Her research showed that humanity's violent history had also produced unprecedented levels of cooperation and problem-solving ability. The same pressures that made humans dangerous also made them protective of those in need. The galactic economy began to change as human technology and ideas spread through civilized space. Worlds that had paid tribute to avoid destruction started building their own defenses. Species that had accepted victimization as natural began to question why they remained helpless when help was available. Admiral So Young Choi found herself commanding not just human ships but vessels from dozens of other species whose crews wanted to serve under Deathworlder leadership. The rescue at the research station had inspired beings across the galaxy who were tired of living in fear of pirates and raiders. The concept of proportional response spread through galactic civilization as humans taught other species that mercy was not weakness, but strength under control. Peaceful beings learned that sometimes the most compassionate action was swift, decisive violence against those who threatened innocence. Commander Tae-hyun Kim's language department grew into a full diplomatic corps that facilitated communication between hundreds of species. The humans served as translators not just of words but of concepts that peaceful species struggled to understand. They explained how strength could serve peace and how preparation for war could prevent it. The story that had begun with a desperate cry for help became the foundation of a new galactic order. Pirates who had operated with impunity for centuries found themselves hunted by forces that would not be intimidated or bribed. Peaceful worlds that had been defenseless became protected by beings who understood that some things were worth fighting for. The Deathworlders had found their place among the stars not as conquerors, but as guardians. They used their terrible heritage to ensure that no civilization would ever again face extinction, while crying out to an empty void for help that never came. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The arrival of humanity had divided civilized space into factions that argued constantly about how to deal with the Deathworlders. But while politicians debated the future, ordinary beings were already making their own choices about which side they wanted to be on. Admiral So Young Choi now commanded the largest mixed-species fleet in galactic history. Ships from dozens of different worlds had requested permission to serve under human leadership. Their crews were tired of being victims and wanted to learn from beings who had never accepted defeat as inevitable. The human way of thinking was spreading faster than any government could control. The Terran Defense Alliance had grown from 3 human ships to over 200 vessels representing 40 different species. Every world that joined brought their own technology and knowledge, but they all shared the same basic philosophy. Innocent people deserved protection, and those who preyed on the weak deserved swift justice. Lieutenant Hyun-woo Park ran the largest military training facility in known space on a planet that